With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yolana Weeks.
Our top stories.
Dr. Patricia Bartlett calls on the Nevis Island administration to be more intentional and accountable in addressing feral animal concerns.
Keyshawn Williams charged for firearm offenses. Kristen Liebert faces drug importation charges. Alfonso Eddy faces a 3-year prison sentence. Citizen Security Secretariat outlines beyond the 90 days initiatives to stop crime and violence. Public warning reissued about Desi Williams' fraudulent activities. CARICOM calls for systemic discrimination to be addressed. St. Lucia terminates contract with Caribbean Galaxy. Implications revealed. Internationally, U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs put Chinese businesses in limbo. Now, the details.
Feral animals, notably monkeys and donkeys, cause considerable yield loss to food production in St. Kitts and Nevis. Donkeys also cause serious traffic accidents as they roam the streets. Speaking to an audience of Your Voice with the NRP on April 14, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, the Nevis Reformation Party candidate for St. John, expressed concern that feral animals continue to wreak havoc on communities, despite millions being spent on monkey and donkey control. Bartlett said over $5 million was reportedly spent on monkeys and donkeys over a period of time, but questioned the transparency of the spending.
What I need to show to our people, though, is that these people have been funneling money into agriculture, and sometimes you don't know where it goes. It's not reflected in the output or the outcome. And so over the period from 2018 up until 2023, they have spent $5.6 million on monkey control and donkey control. Now let's put that into perspective. It means that, let us say that they were just doing the donkey population and they didn't shoot one monkey, but it was just donkey that they're focusing on. It means that that money for that period of time could have taken out 62,000 donkeys. I don't think we have that many donkeys on Nevis. Somebody going to have to do some reconciliation to tell us how that money was spent. Or if, on the other hand, we said that they didn't control not even one donkey, but they focus on monkeys, they would have taken out 124,000 monkeys for that period of time with the kind of money that they were spending, because they were spending $45 for a monkey tail, and they were spending, I think, up to $90 for a donkey, a donkey picture, to say that you would have done what you would have, you just had to take a picture and send it to them and you got paid. And so it begs the question, where all that money went, because we are still being harassed by monkeys.
Bartlett explained that green monkeys are becoming increasingly problematic on the island of Nevis, sharing that farmers and backyard gardeners like herself can barely get anything grown due to the challenges posed by these significant agricultural pests.
I tried to plant a little vine in my yard.
They pull them up.
And they pull them up, and I decided that I'm going to keep planting. And I keep planting. I already pulled them up 4 times. Monkeys just decide that, we're not going to get any rest for monkeys. And the complaints are always out there. And I don't hear any farmer complaining less. As a matter of fact, some people with backyard gardens, I've heard people saying they want to chop down their mango trees because they can't get rest for the monkeys. They can't get a mango. People are saying that they have other trees, and I've experienced it myself. I have fruit trees, and monkeys come, and I have my dunks tree, and some people call them jujube, and the monkeys take all. The bats will take a portion of it as well. But the point is, though, that we are still being, or at least farmers are still being harassed, and people want to have backyard gardens to at least to have some little subsistence farming to go in to supplement their income. These people cannot get to do that because they're always being harassed by monkeys.
Livestock farmers have their share of challenges. Several have complained that dogs are injuring or killing their livestock. Bartlett said that problem is often overlooked.
Of course, we have dogs as well. That a problem for livestock owners. So you can't just target monkeys and donkeys and forget that we do a little livestock farming on the island as well. So we have to make sure that we address that.
Meanwhile, at the 2025 Nevis AgriFest, the Director of Agriculture, Randy Elliott, acknowledged that the Ministry and Department of Agriculture are aware of the feral animal issue and how they are hindering the production of food on the island of Nevis. Dr. Bartlett suggests that the government be more accountable and strategic with the feral control project if they are to ensure food security for residents.
I had to really address the challenges that farmers are facing, and not necessarily to give these people advice because they don't want advice from technocrats. They want to seem to just be winging it as it were. And so there are some challenges that we must address in order for agriculture to move forward in this dispensation. And putting aside the feral animal control, I just want to add to that there must be a better way of doing business because there seems not to be any accountability. We must know how many animals you have taken out at this point and how many are left and what the strategy is going to be going forward. But that is something that we have to sort out.
Kishan Williams, a resident of Lower Monkey Hill, St. Peter's, St. Kitts, was formally charged on April 8, 2025 at the Bastia Police Station for offences including possession of an imitation firearm, shooting at with intent, and possession of a firearm with intent to prevent lawful apprehension. These charges relate to an April 5, 2025 incident at Pine Gardens, Shadwell, St. Kitts. Police have clarified that the imitation firearm in Williams's possession was a toy gun that had been modified to appear like a real weapon. The modification contributed to the charge of possession of firearm with intent to prevent lawful apprehension, as the adjusted appearance of the toy gun and the act of carrying it in public demonstrated intent to evade lawful arrest or challenge police authority. Further complicating the situation, authorities revealed that another individual was present during the incident who was armed with a real firearm and discharged 2 shots in the direction of police officers. The accomplice is currently in custody and the investigation remains active. Williams is being charged as part of a joint enterprise with this second suspect facing additional legal scrutiny. Concerns have arisen regarding whether the firearm involved was a ghost gun, a type of untraceable firearm often assembled illegally. However, law enforcement confirmed that the weapon was not a ghost gun but a modified toy gun made to look genuine. Nonetheless, police continue to be vigilant about the possible circulation of illegal and untraceable firearms within the Federation and maintain ongoing efforts to curb gun-related crime. In a separate development, Kristen Liebert of Stony Grove, Nevis, was charged with 4 offences on April 10, 2025 at the Bastia Police Station concerning contraband discovered at the Robert L. Bradshaw International Airport on St. Kitts. On April 8, 2025, the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force Anti-Narcotics Unit responded swiftly following a Customs and Excise Department tip. They were directed to luggage belonging to Liebert, which, upon inspection by customs officers, was found to contain a package of vegetable material later identified as cannabis. Liebert's charges encompass importation of cannabis, submitting a false declaration, importation of a restricted good, cannabis, and importing goods packed in a manner apparent to deceive a customs officer. These offences reflect the gravity of the smuggling attempt and the multiple layers of alleged deception involved. These incidents underscore the ongoing challenges faced by St. Kitts and Nevis authorities in addressing crime related to firearms and narcotics. With updated legislation such as the Firearm Amendment Bill implemented recently, penalties for illegal firearm possession have been significantly increased, emphasizing the government's firm stance against gun violence. Police officials continue to appeal to the public to report illegal weapons and substances. Additionally, Alfonso Eddy of Boone Avenue, St. Kitts, has been sentenced to His Majesty's prison for the offense of malicious damage committed on June 7, 2024. Eddy was sentenced to serve 3 years imprisonment with time spent on remand counted as time served. Her Honor Yasmin Clark sentenced Eddy on April 9, 2025 at the District A Magistrate Court in Bastia, St. Kitts. On April 10, 2024, the Citizen Security Secretariat CSS hosted a media conference to discuss ongoing initiatives following the 90-day campaign against crime and violence, which ended late 2024. The media conference brought together key leaders and stakeholders in citizen security who presented comprehensive insights into government efforts to enhance community safety through holistic community-engaged approaches. The Honorable Senator Iseline Phillip, Minister of Social Development and Gender Affairs, Youth Empowerment, Aging and Disabilities, and co-chair of the Citizen Security Task Force, emphasized the ministry's multifaceted role in social development programs to reintegrate incarcerated individuals to support community development. Senator Phillip highlighted the evolving approach within the police force.
Policing is taking a bit of a softer approach to re-engage with the community and rebuild trust, which is, I think, very important and contributes to the increased rate of resolving some of the crimes that we've seen.
She also commended community policing efforts, especially the collaboration between police liaison officers and the Ministry of Education, aimed at addressing the rising issue of drug abuse among youth, exacerbated by the decriminalization of cannabis. Minister Phillip expressed optimism about programs such as the National Intervention Team's efforts in schools that work to mitigate this root cause of violence and crime.
Drug abuse was number 4 in terms of the top-rated root causes for crime and violence. And of course, we're in an environment where cannabis has been decriminalized, and I think schools have been reporting increased use amongst young people. But thanks to the National Intervention Team and program through TAPS, I believe it's called, the community policing officers are in the schools and are rolling out that program. So just want the public to be aware that we recognize and acknowledge these gaps. And of course, there's efforts being made with the police to strengthen partnerships and improve community policing to rebuild trust in the community.
Alicia Collins, family counselor at the Citizen Security Secretariat, detailed the CSS's expansive community-based initiatives. Collins articulated the Secretariat's focus on promoting healing and behavioral change through early intervention and family support programs. She explained the importance of assisting families grappling with trauma and improving communication within homes, noting the increasing acceptance of mental health conversations that were once taboo.
We see families are reaching out to us. They're asking for our support in the homes. How can I communicate better with my child? I am a parent, a mother, a father. I am a grandmother who is raising a child. And I have suffered from a lot of trauma that I've never gotten the chance to heal from. How can I not pass on this trauma to my children? And these are things that we have parents are saying to us. And this is a huge turning point for us here in our society. As we know, our mental health and counseling was seen as a taboo once ago.
Underscoring the societal shift towards embracing counseling and support services. Collins also highlighted the Secretariat's restorative justice practices, community mediation to rebuild trust, and reintegration support for incarcerated individuals, which aim to reduce recidivism and strengthen community bonds. Sergeant Charmaine O'Dane, leading the National Intervention Team under the Citizen Security Task Force, illustrated the team's active engagement with youth through community policing. Sergeant O'Dane described various programs such as cultural and sports activities, police camps, and the clubs designed to foster discipline, engagement, and positive relationships between law enforcement and young people.
We're also involved in intervention. We have done it through culture, education, sports. We're also involved with bringing back the prison ambassador for youth. We engage them very often in taking them to do presentation and engaging our youths. We also have police clubs. We also are involved in police camp. We have an ongoing camp going on, our second annual Easter camp. We have daily over 150 children. Should be closing off tomorrow with a fun day at Brimstone Hill, learning about our history, and then we are going to engage in fun activities. These children also have been learning drills, which is a form of discipline, and they will display what they did to the younger children tomorrow as well. We have a drum corps as well ongoing. We are also involved in a lot of summer camps. We do youth presentation, career day. We have, after the 90 days, we have reinstated the teens and police services. This is geared towards bridging gaps with our high school students since February of this year. Most of the high schools are very much involved, even the private.
Eartha Carey, coordinator of the Citizen Security Secretariat, expressed gratitude towards stakeholders and partners who have supported the national strategy to address crime and violence through a public health lens. Carey reflected on the impact of the 90-day campaign as, quote, a catalyst for national dialogue and action, unquote, that unearthed the root causes of violence and amplified the voices of affected communities. She detailed upcoming projects, including early childhood engagement programs targeting preschools in both islands and the planned Better Opportunity Fairs to be held in partnership with the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force between May and July. These fairs aim to provide at-risk youth and families with career readiness programs, parenting support, and skills training to break the cycles of societal and economic disadvantages. Kerry further noted plans for community re-engagement to track evolving needs and extend support, emphasizing the long-term nature of the effort.
Looking ahead, we will return to our communities. Again, like Mr. Richards mentioned, we're going to be re-engaging them with residents, gather updated statistics, and continue providing support where it's most needed. This is a long-term commitment, and we are supposed to be doing it together, so it's all hands on deck. We're reaching out to all the stakeholders, both government and non-governmental. Come on board, we have room for all.
By integrating community-led programs, police collaboration, family and youth support services, and educational initiatives, the government is striving to create safer communities rooted in trust, healing, and sustainable development. The active involvement of various stakeholders from government ministries and law enforcement to counselors and community leaders underscores a holistic paradigm shift that aims to reduce crime through prevention, intervention, and restorative justice. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force issued a stern reminder to the public on April 13, 2025 that Desi Williams of Sandy Point, St. Kitts has been persistently on their wanted list since July 7, 2024. Despite efforts to evade justice, Williams remains a source of concern due to the ongoing reports of fraudulent behavior. Desi Williams, a 35-year-old male, approximately 5 feet 7 inches tall with dark skin, brown eyes, and black hair, is wanted in connection with multiple offenses of false pretense. He is originally from the Farms Project, Sandy Point area. Authorities report that Williams is currently believed to be residing in another Caribbean island, avoiding capture while allegedly continuing his deceptive practices, described by the police in a cautionary tone as his usual sun scam and scheme tactics. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force has urged the public to remain vigilant and warned that anyone engaging in transactions or communication with Williams risks becoming a victim of fraud. The police emphasized caution with the metaphorical advice not to store your sugar cake with ants, illustrating the danger of trusting someone known for deceit. The public is advised to refrain from dealing with Williams. Moreover, if anyone has been approached by Williams or has pertinent information regarding his whereabouts, they are strongly encouraged to promptly contact the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force Criminal Investigations Department. In regional news, CARICOM calls for systemic discrimination to be addressed, Guyana News Source reports.
Systemic inequality, racial discrimination, and reparatory justice are among crucial issues that ought to be addressed during the second International Decade for People of African Descent. That's according to the Secretary General of CARICOM, Dr. Carla Barnett. She made those comments while she addressed the fourth session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent at the United Nations headquarters. Dr. Barnett said for the global African community, those issues remain a top priority, and CARICOM will continue to champion the need for recognition, justice, and development for people of African descent.
The second International Decade for People of African Descent provides renewed impetus to advance CARICOM's own reparations agenda for repair, justice, and development of people of African descent, as well as for our indigenous peoples. It is an opportunity to confront the consequences of European colonization and enslavement, and to call attention to the enduring legacies of these historical injustices.
The CARICOM chair also said the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent is taking place at a time when Haiti, a country in crisis, is still without reparation.
Reparations for Haiti continues to be central to CARICOM's reparations claim. April 2025 marks the bicentenary of the indemnity of 150 million francs imposed on Haiti by France as reparations for loss of property, including enslaved Africans, as a precondition for recognizing the island's independence.
And she also said the negative economic and social effects of the historical injustice are painfully clear, with arguable links to the situation in Haiti today. While commending the Permanent Forum for placing the spotlight on Haiti, Dr. Barnett said this anniversary presents an opportunity to bring global attention and a deeper understanding of the situation in Haiti. She said it also serves as a call to action to address the ongoing security, humanitarian, and governance crisis in that country. The fourth session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, she said, not only coincides with the second international decade for people of African descent, but it is also being held at a time when the African Union is observing 2025 as the year for justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations. In 2024, CARICOM heads of government expressed their full support for increased collaboration and participation by the region in the meetings and the work of the Permanent Forum. The CARICOM Secretary General said the CARICOM Reparation Commission, in particular, stands ready to collaborate with the Permanent Forum to advance material improvements for the people of African descent. The regional bloc has also been working closely with the African Union, and later this year in September will participate in the second CARICOM African Union Summit in Ethiopia.
St. Lucia terminates contract with Caribbean Galaxy. Implications revealed. DBS St. Lucia has that story.
At a pre-cabinet briefing on March 31, 2025, Investment Minister Dr. Ernest Hilaire informed that government had terminated the contractual agreement with Caribbean Galaxy Real Estate Limited in order to bring the agreement in line with the requirement of the Memorandum of Agreement with the other CIP countries of the OECS. While Minister Hilaire on March 31st told the media that he had made the pronouncement in October last year, sources tell the DBS Newsworld that Cabinet on March 24, 2025, considered the request for suspension of the National Infrastructure Improvement Project and the termination of the Galaxy Agreement. At the April 14 pre-cabinet briefing, Minister Hilaire further revealed that St. Lucia was not allowed a grandfather clause into the MOA, the Memorandum of Agreement with the CIP OECS countries. This would have allowed St. Lucia to continue operating under its existing terms even after the MOA rules were implemented. The MOA was signed by Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts, Nevis, Grenada, and Dominica in March of 2024. St. Lucia signed in June of that year.
We had asked for a grandfathering of the existing agreements we had, and it was not granted. Eventually we signed, because we had to sign as one of the countries, and then we've been trying to renegotiate. So rather than get the grandfathering, which we did not get, we have to renegotiate it with them. We were hoping we could have had a discussion with them and sort out some of the issues. Cabinet has also agreed to relook at the CIP. So once we decided to relook at the CIP, the best course of action was to terminate it.
The minister was asked whether government would have to compensate Caribbean Galaxy for the termination. Dr. Hilaire informed that both parties agreed to the termination and therefore there is no compensation. However, DBS Newsworld is reliably informed that Caribbean Galaxy is not pleased with the decision. The MOA has increased the minimum investment for the infrastructure option from $100,000 to $240,000 US. Caribbean Galaxy is said to be holding strong on the position that the contract signed on January 12, 2024 contemplated any future legislative price changes. That contract, which was made public last year by MSR Media and not disputed by the minister, states that the minimum charges shall not increase until all 6,000 applications have been successfully processed. If the Act and other regulations are subsequently amended or new primary and or subsidiary legislation enacted which increases the minimum charges, the government and Caribbean Galaxy suffers a loss. As a result, the government shall compensate Caribbean Galaxy by the provision of additional applications. The number of additional applications shall be calculated by the difference in the increased minimum charge. Minister Hilaire says no citizenships have been granted under the infrastructure option. However, applications have been received. So what becomes of those applications?
That's part of the review and the renegotiation that will take place, and the appropriate decision will be made.
So do we know how many were received?
How many were, yeah, that
How many applications were received under infrastructure?
I think it was just around 3,000.
It remains unclear whether Caribbean Galaxy provided to government the requisite $100 million in financing for the National Infrastructure Improvement Project. For the DBS News World, Lisa Joseph reporting.
We now bring you these international reports.
Meanwhile, China's President Xi Jinping is on what's been called a charm offensive across Southeast Asia, visiting Vietnam, Malaysia and Cambodia. It comes as companies in China say they could be badly hit by the ongoing trade war with the US. The Trump administration put tariffs of 145% on most Chinese imports earlier this month. Beijing later responded with its own 125% tariffs on American products coming into China. Our Beijing correspondent Laura Bicker reports.
They even make shoes by the roadside in the factory of the world, where family income is measured by how many heels you can make in an hour. Here they are feeling the effects of an economic war. Workers live from contract to contract. They need orders, if not from the US, then who? But some have been lucky. This group of workers make shoes to sell within China.
The Americans are tricky. We don't trust them. Very few people are in the export business now. No one wants to trade with America. We have 1.4 billion people in the domestic market. That's enough.
Guangzhou is hosting one of the world's biggest trade fairs as the world's two largest economies wage a trade war. Everything here is for sale, and some of these goods should be making their way to American households. Instead, we're told orders from the US have been cancelled. Firms who once sold to America are in limbo as they wait and hope for talks to end this crisis.
What do you think of Donald Trump?
He's crazy man. He's crazy Trump. And I believe he always changes his mind. I believe maybe 1 month or 2 months he will change his mind again.
In the past, were there buyers from America?
Yeah, like last year, April, like 20%.
This year, zero. Nothing
for the US market.
Many companies we've spoken to who sell to the United States have told us they are now looking for alternative markets. The reality is China's economy is still export driven. Around half of its growth in the last year has come from selling goods abroad.
Beijing also needs its neighbours to stand firm with them. President Xi is on a charm offensive in Southeast Asia, urging them to resist what he calls US bullying. China remains defiant, a show of pride as it starts to feel some pain. Goods once bound for the US are piling up in these ports. This country can withstand Donald Trump's onslaught of tariffs, but it doesn't mean it won't hurt. Laura Bicker, BBC News, Guangzhou.
Rape is becoming a systematic weapon of war in Sudan, a United Nations agency warned on Tuesday as the devastating conflict marked its second year. Regional Director of UN Women, Anna Mutavati, said there has been a nearly 290% increase in demand for life-saving support for rape and sexual violence survivors.
We've also seen what is beginning to look like systematic use of rape and sexual violence as a weapon of war. We have seen women's lives and women's bodies being turned into battlegrounds in this conflict.
The war between Sudan's army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, erupted in April 2023. It shattered hopes for a transition to civilian rule and has killed tens of thousands of people. It has also displaced millions and destroyed large parts of the country. Mutavati did not say which of the warring parties was responsible for the sexual violence, but she said this was the tip of the iceberg, since not every survivor is coming forward due to fear of victim blaming. Tuesday's warning came as Britain and the European Union promised to boost aid to Sudan at a conference in London aimed at improving the coordination of the international response to the crisis. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy urged the global community not to resign ourselves to inevitable conflict.
We have got to persuade the warring parties to protect civilians, to let aid in and across the country, and to put peace first.
The EU and member states pledged some $592 million in aid for Sudan, while Britain announced an extra $158 million to address the crisis, which includes a growing famine. Missing from the talks was Sudan, although the African Union was a co-host. Sudan's foreign minister has complained to Lamy about his country's exclusion. He also criticized the presence of the United Arab Emirates and Kenya after Sudan accused them of having dealings with the RSF.
The victims were men, women, and children. They were buried in mass graves, not the dignified way their families would have wanted. People here say many of them were murdered in their sleep.
We were sleeping when we heard gunshots. They started shooting from a nearby village before arriving at our village, shooting and killing people as they moved.
They add to the 52 people killed last week in the same area of central Nigeria's Plateau State. The violence is fueled by ethnic and religious tensions on one hand, and shrinking access to land and resources, as well as the impact of climate change on the other.
It started up with concerns about discrimination leveled by the non-indigenous against the indigenous, and then it started off from that footing. But over time, it has metamorphosed into pure criminality and terror attacks in seeing that, large numbers of people are being displaced from their communities.
President Bola Tinubu has called for a speedy and fair resolution of the underlying causes of this decades-long crisis. And as the families of the victims say their last farewell, there are fears of more attacks or retaliation that usually follow such violence in this region. Officials say security has been stepped up around communities. But most often, perpetrators of the violence find a way to launch their attacks. Ahmed Idris, Al Jazeera, Abuja.
Two more Wall Street banks posted strong quarterly results Tuesday as they benefited from volatile markets in the first 3 months of the year. Citigroup and Bank of America topped estimates for first quarter profit on a surge in stock trading. Investors rejigged their portfolios during a period of heightened uncertainty over President Donald Trump's tariffs and the emergence of Chinese startup DeepSeek's low-cost AI model. Shares of Citigroup, which posted 23% higher stock trading revenue, rose as much as almost 4% Tuesday morning. Shares of Bank of America, which posted its highest markets revenue in more than a decade, jumped as much as 5.5% in morning trading. While industry earnings rose, executives warned that U.S. tariff policies cast a shadow over the economic outlook. Citigroup CEO Jane Fraser said the bank continues to, quote, help our clients navigate an uncertain environment. Citigroup's chief financial officer said the uncertainty was putting downward pressure on the outlook for growth, adding that the bank increased its provisions for loan losses, but so far borrowers' delinquencies are within expectations. Executives at B of A said its research team at this point does not believe there will be a recession, and clients continue to show encouraging signs. However, they pointed to the uncertainty over tariffs and the future path of the economy.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were:
Dr. Patricia Bartlett calls on the Nevis Island administration to be more intentional and accountable in addressing feral animal concerns.
Keyshawn Williams charged for firearm offenses. Kristen Liebert faces drug importation charges. Alfonso Eddy faces a 3-year prison sentence. Citizen Security Secretariat outlines beyond the 90 days initiatives to stop crime and violence. Public warning reissued about Desi Williams' fraudulent activities. CARICOM calls for systemic discrimination to be addressed. St. Lucia terminates contract with Caribbean Galaxy. Implications revealed. Internationally, U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs put Chinese businesses in limbo. Thank you for listening.